Being suck, Boston and Philly are now tied for the 4th seed in the East. Embiid is going to have to pay a fine for that one, but
yes, he will.
Chris, how concerned should the Sixers be about their struggles with Philly?
Very. The Philadelphia 76ers are 2-10 versus Boston since the start of last season. 2-10, and that includes that 4-1 series victory that Boston had over them in the playoffs last year. And it pains me to say this because from essentially day one when they got together, I have been on the record. I'm a big fan of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I've said they could be the next Shaq, Penny, if not greater. When you talk about, Kareem, Magic, just a point guard, big man combo that could win championships. That's what they could be. And if they meet Boston, the fan in me will be pulling for Philadelphia. But all that said, there is absolutely, positively no way that the Philadelphia 76ers this year can beat the Boston Celtics in the playoff series.
What? I didn't hear you. What was that?
No way, no how. No, that would be the most, other than Golden State, that series and competitive teams matched up, that's the one I would be the most confident about. And right now they are the 4 and 5 seed. And here's why. Philadelphia has more talent. And I'm saying with or without Kyrie. If Kyrie plays, Philly loses. If Kyrie sits, Philly loses. Because when you watch these two teams play, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are not yet mature enough as basketball players to beat a team like Boston. Boston is the antithesis of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a bunch of talent. We win on talent. Boston is we win on execution. We win on grit. We win on doing the right thing, making the right play, hitting the open man. And even though it changes a little with Kyrie has shown he's a winner. He's arguably the best closer in the league, and he will be there in the clutch. You look at that series last year, you look at the game last night, when it comes down to the close moments, Philadelphia makes a mistake, and Boston doesn't. Last night, Philly's down 9 with 8.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They have a nice little run, cut it to 4 with 3.5 minutes left. Ben Simmons gets a rebound. They push it. He kicks to Embiid. Embiid takes a three-pointer. You take a three-pointer, you are 30% free throw shooter. You are the best center in the NBA. Nobody can stop you on the block. You're an 81% foul shooter, and you're taking a three-pointer at that point in the game. Why? And so you look at the end of the game, they didn't get the good shots that they want. And Brett Brown, I think, is a good coach, but he gets out coached badly when they play Boston. Brad Stevens runs circles around him. And so that's why I think they would have a shot against Toronto. I'd pick Toronto. I think they have a shot against Milwaukee. I'd pick them. They have no shot against Boston. So they better hope either they or the Celtics can move up to catch Indiana for that 3rd seed. Because if they meet each other, Boston's or Philly is out in the first round.
That's a strong statement. I disagree. I think that the Sixers can beat the Celtics. I don't like the way they play against the Celtics. And the reason why is because of the coaching. When I look at the way the Boston Celtics play, and I'll eliminate Kyrie Irving, they just play hard and tough from start to finish. When I look at the Sixers, they have so much athletic ability. Sometimes they rely on that versus the fundamentals of playing basketball. And you mentioned the lack of maturity. It doesn't even take the maturity for them to understand Embiid, let's play inside out. And in that game, if he plays inside out more than settling, they beat the Celtics. And I think that's just a matter of them understanding, look, know who we are. Let's not try to conform to the rest of the NBA and what everybody else does and fall in love with 3-point shots. Know who we are, understand your dominance. And I think that's why they can beat the Celtics in a series, and I don't think they have to worry about the Celtics as far as, yes, we've lost 2 out of the last 10. I don't care about that. What I see is a team that is athletic enough, talented enough, that just needs to understand how to be disciplined when playing a disciplined, sound team, a team that is going to grind and grit no matter what. Jimmy Butler. When I look at the Boston Celtics, they have guys that are their tough guys. They're their back guys. Marcus Smart, Marcus Morris. Those 2 guys are Jaylen Brown defensively. Tough. Right. That's what they do. When I look at the Sixers, Jimmy Butler is that guy for them, and he has not been that because he's so worried about falling to the shadows with all this talent around him instead of just being the guy. Get back to what you do best and being one of the best 2-way players in all of the National Basketball Association, and the 76ers will be just fine. Until Jimmy Butler realizes that is his most valuable asset to any team, specifically where he is right now, they're going to struggle. He is a veteran in that locker room. He understands what it takes. He's been to conference finals. He's been in dog fights in the playoffs. He understands with the Bulls in that team against LeBron James. He's stepped up to the plate and taken on challenges to where he has to be that voice of leadership. It's not always about scoring points. They have a plethora of guys that can score points in various ways. I think it comes down to, are you going to be willing, kind of like what we talked about with the Lakers, are you going to be willing to bow your back and grind and be disciplined defensively and be tough? And that's what I see that the Sixers lack sometimes, is that toughness. And they can't be that, they can't lack that when you have the most physically dominating presence in all of the sport in Joel Embiid. Don't settle, to your point. There was a point in that game, I want to say it was 94-94, and Joel Embiid settled for the 3 when he clearly had an advantage inside. Now, Al Horford, I think he does one of the best jobs defending Joel Embiid, head up, one-on-one, but he can't stop Joel. Joel Embiid has to understand, if I can just impose my will early and often, Al Horford is no factor.
Often it is Joel Embiid who stops himself.
Exactly. So I disagree with you when it comes to there's no way, no how that they can beat the Celtics. They can definitely beat the Celtics.
Who would you favor in the series?
I would favor the Sixers.
I'm with Greg. Chris, no way, no how is way strong. And it's not like they're getting blown out, and they can't compete. And now when you add, to me, when you look at their team with Butler and Tobias Harris and those 4 guys and J.J. Redick, they have enough firepower. I'm always going to take talent over know-how. And I get it, making the right plays and all the extra stuff that they do. But they just need to clean up and do some of the, play more sound basketball at the end of games. It's not like a major overhaul. Oh my God, we can't do this no matter what we do. Yes, we know what the Sixers are doing and what they're shooting themselves in the foot that they can clean up. They have enough talent, and I get it. They've owned them for a stretch, but does that mean they can't beat them this year? They got these last 25 games or so to work everybody in, let Tobias Harris, everybody get comfortable. And now in the playoff run, just like you said, you're going to have a Jimmy Butler who's been through some of those things. And it's not just like last year when you had just Simmons and Embiid trying to do something that they had never even experienced before.
I agree with both you guys. I mean, talent-wise, Philadelphia has much more talent than Boston, especially when Kyrie's out. But it's not easy to do what you said. I mean, just tighten up the end of the game. I mean, we've seen that going back to last year's playoffs. We've seen it in virtually every game this year between those 2 teams. They don't have a leader on the court. Like, again, Simmons and Embiid are still young, too young, and I don't think basketball mature enough to lead. And then Butler, we know he's had problems leading at wherever he's been. Tobias is a very good player. He's new. He's not really ever been in that leadership role on an NBA team. So they don't have a guy that's going to be the leader out there. And like last year when they met him in the playoffs, there were a lot of times you felt, why don't they go to Embiid on the block at the end of the game? And they didn't.
But that might be coaching, what you're talking about.
Well,
yeah,
I think
that might be.
It shows up in this series more than any, whether it's out of bounds plays or getting the right shot at the right time. And like I said, I think Brett's done a good job with them. But if they don't tighten these things up, I don't see any way they can beat Boston this year in the playoffs.
This is where I feel like Russell Westbrook, what he's been able to do, finally, take a step back and not put up as many shots and understand I can be just as effective and important doing other things. Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, has to be that guy for this Philadelphia 76ers team to where offensively, I'm not needed as much. We still know you're going to score. We still need your points, but we don't need them in volume like you had to do with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We don't need that Jimmy Butler. We need the Jimmy Butler that was in Chicago, that we can match up with any star that's across from us, and you can eliminate them. You can wash them out. And that's where the leadership starts right there for me with this 76ers team. If Jimmy Butler decides, you know what, I'm going to scale back offensively, that doesn't mean you can't still get. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
But you draw back a little bit offensively to show I'm going to do everything else. Look, you're still a star in this. We know the value that you possess and that you have going to any team outside of the 76ers or free agents, whatever the case may be. But until Jimmy Butler does that, I think the 76ers will still look and appear immature because everybody is about pride and ego. And Joel Embiid, in my opinion, doesn't understand how important it is to. Shaq said something last night where I can't remember who it was, had mentioned that Joel Embiid, matter of fact, it was Elton Brand, said that Joel Embiid is the best big man that he's ever gone up against. He's been up against Shaq in his prime and someone else in their prime. And he said Joel Embiid is better. And Shaq said he's going to have to prove it. He's going to have to live up to that.
Right.
And living up to that is not behind the three-point arc. It's developing that presence inside out first. And until he does that, he's just going to be another big that has all this potential that we didn't see it maximized.
Well, you guys spend a lot of time talking about the Sixers side of that game, but credit